Shalom and welcome everyone. Today we'll be diving into the First Book of Maccabees. It is a historical account found in the Apocrypha, a collection of ancient texts. This book was discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, offering a preserved glimpse into Hebrew life and beliefs around the 2nd century BCE. It is also included in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church's Bible, which uniquely preserves these writings as part of its scriptural tradition. In addition, the 1611 King James Bible also includes these books. The First Book of Maccabees recounts the Hebrews' struggle for independence from the Seleucid Empire, led by the courageous Maccabean family. Their story captures a determined fight for faith, freedom, and the preservation of their covenant with Yahuah, remembered through the festival of Hanukkah. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to help us spread this important message to others. Also, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to all who have generously donated to the ministry. May Yahuah continue to provide for you and shower you with His abundant blessings. And parents, we encourage you to use these lessons as study guides with your children to help them understand these teachings. Now let's get started. Our story begins with the rise of Alexander the Great and his subsequent conquests, which spread Greek culture across the Near East. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided, and the region of Judea came under the control of the Seleucid Empire. Under Antiochus, the fourth Epiphanes, a Seleucid king, there was intense persecution of the Hebrew people. Antiochus sought to unify his kingdom by enforcing Hellenistic customs, banning Hebrew religious practices, desecrating the Jerusalem temple, and erecting an altar to Zeus. Any practicing Hebrew faced severe punishment or death. In the town of Modane, an elderly priest named Mattathias refused to abandon his faith in Yahuah when a royal official commanded him to offer a pagan sacrifice. When another priest stepped forward to perform the sacrifice, Mattathias, filled with zeal for Yahuah, struck down both the official and the priest, boldly declaring his defiance of the king's edicts. His bold act of faith and defiance sparked a rebellion. Knowing the consequences, Mattathias and his 5 sons, John, Simon, Judas, Eleazar, and Jonathan, fled to the hills, igniting a powerful movement of resistance against the Seleucid oppression. Now the days drew near for Mattathias to die, and he spoke to his sons, saying,
"Arrogance and contempt are present everywhere. It is a time of ruin and raging anger. Now, my children, demonstrate zeal for the law, and give your lives for our ancestors' covenant. Remember the deeds of the ancestors which they did in their day, and you will inherit great honor and everlasting remembrance. Wasn't Abraham found faithful when he was tested, and it was considered righteousness? Joseph kept the commandment in the time of his distress, and he became ruler of Egypt. Our ancestor Phinehas received the covenant of everlasting priesthood because he was deeply zealous. Joshua became a judge in Yasharal because he fulfilled the command. Caleb received an inheritance in the land because he testified in the assembly. David inherited the throne of the kingdom forever because he was merciful. Eliah was taken up into heaven because he had great zeal for the law. Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael believed and were rescued from the flame. Daniel was delivered from the lion's mouths because of his innocence. So you see that from generation to generation, no one who continues to trust Elohim will lack strength. Don't fear the words of sinners, for their glory will turn into dung and worms. Today they may be exalted, but tomorrow they can't be found, because they will have returned to the dust, and their plans will have vanished. My children, show courage and grow strong in the law, because this will bring you honor. Look, here is your brother Simon, who I know is a man with purpose. Always listen to him. He will be your father. Judas Maccabeus has been a powerful fighter since he was a boy. He will command the army for you and lead the battle against the peoples. Rally around yourselves all who observe the law and avenge wrong done to your people. Pay the Gentiles back in full and obey what the law commands."
Then he blessed them and joined his ancestors. He died in the year 146 and was buried in an ancestral tomb at Modin. All Yasharal mourned for him with sorrow. After Mattathias' death, leadership passed to his son Judas, known as Maccabeus, which translates to the Hammer. He rose as a fierce, brilliant tactician and inspiring leader, delivering powerful blows against the enemies of Yasharal to reclaim their freedom and faith. At the Battle of Beth Horon, Judas defeated a larger Seleucid force using guerrilla tactics. His knowledge of the land gave him an advantage, and the Seleucid army suffered a stunning defeat. In preparation for the Battle of Emmaus, Gorgias, a Syrian Seleucid general, gathered 5,000 infantry and 1,000 elite cavalry, moving out under cover of night, planning a surprise attack on the Hebrew camp. Guided by men from the fortress, they closed in, confident of an easy victory. But Judas heard of their movements. With his warriors, he launched a counterattack on the king's forces camped at Emmaus, while Gorgias' division was absent. Entering Judas's camp at night, Gorgias found it empty. He searched the hills, convinced the Jews had fled in fear. At dawn, Judas and 3,000 men appeared on the plain, though they lacked full armor and weaponry. Judas addressed his men, saying,
"Do not fear their numbers or their charge. Remember how our ancestors were saved at the Red Sea when Pharaoh's forces pursued them. Let us cry to heaven, and may he remember his covenant and crush this army today, so all will know Yasharal has a redeemer."
The Gentile camp spotted Yasharal advancing and prepared for battle. Judas's men blew their trumpets, and the battle began. The Gentiles were crushed, fleeing across the plain. Yasharal pursued them to Gazara, Idumea, Azotus, and Jamnia, leaving 3,000 of their enemies slain. Judas halted his men from plundering, reminding them of the ongoing battle. He told them not to be eager to take spoils, as Gorgias and his forces were still nearby in the hills.
"Let us face them first and then take the spoils."
As Gorgias' division emerged from the hills, they saw the devastation. They spotted Judas's forces in the plain, ready to fight. Overcome by fear, they fled into Philistine territory. Judas's army returned to plunder the camp, taking gold, silver, and richly dyed garments. Returning with great joy, they sang praises. Yahuah is good, for his mercy endures forever. That day brought a great deliverance to Yasharal. The following year, Lysias assembled 60,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry to subdue Yasharal. Judas, with only 10,000 men, went out to meet them. Judas lifted his voice in prayer, saying,
"Blessed are you, Savior of Yasharal, who crushed the mighty by the hand of your servant Daud, and delivered the Philistine camp into the hands of Jonathan and his armor-bearer. Surround this army with fear, melt their strength, and let your name be praised by those who love you."
The battle commenced, and Judas's forces defeated Lysias' army, killing 5,000 men. Lysias, witnessing the boldness of Judas's men, withdrew, planning to gather a larger force before returning. Judas and his brothers gathered, saying, "Our enemies are defeated. Let us go up to cleanse and rededicate the sanctuary." They entered Jerusalem, finding the temple desolate and desecrated. They tore their clothes, mourned, and cried out to heaven. Judas appointed priests devoted to the law to cleanse the sanctuary, carrying away the polluted stones. They dismantled the defiled altar and stored the stones on the Temple Mount until a prophet could declare what to do with them. They rebuilt the altar with unhewn stones, restored the sanctuary, and rededicated the interior. They brought the lampstand, incense altar, and table into the temple, offering incense and lighting the lamps. On the 25th day of the 9th month, they rose early and offered sacrifices on the new altar. In the same season, and on the exact day the Gentiles had defiled it, they rededicated the temple with songs, harps, lutes, and cymbals. All the people worshipped and blessed heaven for their success, celebrating the rededication of the altar for 8 days. They offered sacrifices of thanksgiving, decorated the front of the temple, and restored the gates and priests' chambers. Judas, his brothers, and all of Yasharal decreed that the dedication of the altar would be observed each year for 8 days, beginning on the 25th of the 9th month of the biblical calendar, with joy and celebration. At the same time, they built strong walls and towers around Mount Zion to protect it from future invasions. Judah stationed guards in Beth-zur to secure Judea's borders against their enemies. Thus, in 164 BCE, Yasharal had regained its freedom, rededicated the temple, and restored its faith. But the Seleucid forces continued their push to crush the rebellion. In the Battle of Beth Zechariah, Judas's brother, Eleazar Avaran, heroically charged a war elephant, hoping to strike down the enemy king. Eleazar succeeded in bringing down the beast, but lost his life under its weight. His courage inspired the people, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Judas sought alliances to secure the future of Judea, notably with the Roman Republic, hoping their support would deter the Seleucids. However, shortly after these diplomatic efforts, Judas was killed in battle, and his death marked a challenging period for the Hebrews. After Judas's death, leadership passed to his brother Jonathan, who skillfully navigated the political turmoil within the Seleucid Empire. Jonathan secured autonomy for Judea, becoming both a political and spiritual leader. However, Jonathan was later betrayed and killed by Tryphon, a rival in the Seleucid kingdom. Leadership then passed to Simon, the last surviving brother who successfully continued the Maccabean legacy. Simon achieved significant breakthroughs, marking a period of peace and prosperity for the Hebrew state. Under Simon's leadership, the Hebrews achieved de facto independence, and he was officially recognized as both high priest and leader, establishing the Hasmonean dynasty. Simon solidified his rule by fortifying Judea, reforming the economy, and strengthening alliances. His tenure is depicted as a period of relative stability, during which Judea enjoyed autonomy and religious freedom. However, Simon was eventually betrayed and assassinated by his son-in-law Ptolemy, who attempted to take over the region but failed. Leadership then passed to Simon's son, John Hyrcanus, who would continue the Hasmonean rule. The First Book of Maccabees presents great themes of faith, resistance, and sublime intervention. The Maccabean family's struggle was not just for political independence, but for the right to observe the Torah and uphold their covenant with Yahuah. This book concludes with a profound sense of hope and independence. Under the Hasmonean dynasty, the Hebrew people preserved their faith, freedom, and heritage, bearing witness to their trust in Yahuah and the enduring strength of faith and resilience. As Mattathias encouraged his sons, let us find strength in these examples. Abraham was faithful in testing, and it was counted as righteousness. Joseph obeyed during his hardship, leading him to greatness in Egypt. Phinehas's zeal granted him the covenant of everlasting priesthood. David's mercy paved the way to an everlasting throne. Each of these men displayed unwavering commitment to Yahuah and stood firm even amidst a world full of sin and hostility. This is a reminder for us all. If we remain faithful, Elohim will give us strength. From generation to generation, no one who continues to trust Elohim will lack strength. We too are called to stand firm, to be zealous for Yahuah's commandments, to show courage, and to remain obedient to his ways. Let us hold to the words of this passage. Show courage and grow strong in Torah, because this will bring you honor. Though this day is not commanded as a set-apart gathering or Kodesh Mikra like the Moedim in Leviticus 23, it holds meaning for us today. Just as the Hebrews fought to regain their independence, freedom, and restore the temple, let us use this time to dedicate and rededicate our lives to the Most High Yahuah, renewing our commitment to live with faith, courage, and devotion to Him. HalleluYah. All praise to the Most High Yahuah. Shalom.